Well, we're here for another It's Good to Talk with Clients episode, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Emma. She will be telling us a little bit about the SME perspective, the small business perspective. So, Emma, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So first of all, lovely to be here, Andrew. So as you say, my name's Emma Jones. I run a business called Enterprise Nation, and we've been operating for about 15 years now, actually, in terms of helping small businesses get the support they need. But by way of brief background, I feel as if I'm allowed to talk to you today because I started off with an accounting background. So I'd studied law and Japanese at university, and then I joined Arthur Andersen way back when. Well, when Arthur Andersen actually still existed as one of the big five accounting firms as it was at the time. So I started with Andersens to help Japanese companies move into the UK in a process that was known as inward investment. Stayed there for 5 years and then set up my first business in the height of the dot-com boom. So I started a business called techlicate.com, which was all about putting the inward investment process online. Sold that company within 2 years to Tenon PLC, which is now RSM Tenon. So again, still a functioning accounting firm. And I did an 18-month lock-in clause with Tenon when they acquired us. And essentially, I did my dutiful job. I kind of worked a good job for Tenon, but I spent that 18 months figuring out what the next business venture would be. So that was Enterprise Nation. And I was really inspired, actually, at the time. Partly the reason for the name Enterprise Nation is I was inspired by a book written by a guy called Dan Pink, and the book was called Free Agent Nation. It's still very relevant today, and kind of he was charting the rise of self-employment in the US. And what he was looking at is lots of people are starting businesses, but he kind of questioned, was the infrastructure and the support system available in the US to help this kind of entrepreneurship boom to flourish? And I kind of read this book and thought, wow, I think the same thing is going to happen in the UK. I think people are going to choose to start businesses. They're going to need support. They're going to need advisors. And Enterprise Nation was very much kind of born from the perspective of helping businesses get connected to the right advice and support. And as I say, 15 years on, we're still very much doing it in different ways, but we're still on that same road of let's help anyone who wants to start and grow a successful business.
Brilliant. I mean, that's fascinating. And yet I know RSM well. I started out at BDO, and we often were pitching against RSM, so I know those days well. Really interesting, kind of from the small business perspective. Then, so why are you excited by small business? Then you kind of said that you were passionate then to and motivated by Dan Pink, and this you thought would be this growth in small businesses flourishing. Why is that interesting to you? Like, what about it gets you excited?
Well, and it still gets me excited every day. And it's interesting, actually. We work very closely with Amazon. It's just a side part of the story. And Jeff Bezos is very infamously well known for talking about it's day one. So everything at Amazon, they kind of refer to as it's day one. And I still feel like that about Enterprise Nation. And it's partly because of the dynamism of small businesses. So why do I love them? First of all, there's a lot of them. So there is so much variety in the small business sector. But what I love most is yes, I love the business element of it, but of course, I love the founders who start the businesses. So, these incredible founders, you'll know them as well. And fortunately, we've helped lots of them is, they take this kind of really courageous decision to potentially leave a day job and take a passion, or they've spotted a gap in the market and they think, right, I'm going to do something about it. One thing we're seeing with young entrepreneurs at the moment actually is how socially driven they are. So actually so many young entrepreneurs see something that they think is wrong in the world and feel that entrepreneurship is their route to kind of solving that. So these incredibly courageous, adventurous founders. So that's one part that interests me, is literally the people. And then what really fascinates me is just how they build a business. And the great thing about business is there is literally never a dull day. And Andrew, you know about this in terms of running a company. One day you'll be focused on the sales, the next day it's the product, the third day it's the team, and that even makes it sound as if you can kind of categorize it. But of course, every day is it's a combination of all of those things. So the founders fascinate me because I have huge respect for anyone who kind of starts out themselves in business. I love the concept of people just doing stuff for themselves rather than looking to others and asking, what can you do for me? But, what can I do for myself? So politically, that's where I stand. But I'm just constantly intrigued. And I don't know if you can see, my books continue to get, and they're all business books. So I'm absolutely fascinated by how, people build amazing businesses. And as business changes, we'll maybe talk about what's happened over the past 12 months, but as business changes, it just continues to evolve as to how you grow a great business. So it's the people, but it's the mechanics of business, and that just is never-ending delight, fascination and extravagance.
So that's really interesting. I was going to go straight into the role of advisors off the back of that, but I think you've picked up on something interesting. So I'm going to go down this road instead for a bit. And so you've mentioned the new kind of dynamics of entrepreneurs coming through today being a little bit different from the past. And I'm sure you can chart different phases in entrepreneurship. So you mentioned digital, you mentioned actually founders, not that they weren't previously, but maybe more so socially motivated, or what are you seeing then in the last sort of few years that maybe wasn't there before?
Yeah, well, just huge amounts of sustainability. And in fact, we're doing, I don't say this is a boasty thing, but back in 2012, we started taking a group of small business owners into number 10 Downing Street every month to meet with the PM's policy advisor. Anyway, we've started to do those again, and literally the next one, which is on the 15th of March, is on the topic of sustainability. So we're taking 16 founders, not physically, but virtually, to meet with the PM's advisor. And I was really interested the other day. I looked at the 16 founders and thought, I think their average age is about 27. And so this is the thing, it's young people are, crikey, I mean, they've seen troubles in the world in terms of climate change, Black Lives Matter, they've now seen COVID. Even this week's budget, dare I say, these poor young people who are thinking, we're going to be paying for this in years to come. Yeah. And therefore, in a way, because they know that they've got that, what they're feeling is, well, then in which case I want to live a life that's worth living through this. And I feel that self-actualization can come through entrepreneurship. They're in control of their time. They can wear what they want. They can act how they like. Yeah. But critically, they are seeing, so, some of these founders who we've got coming next week. There's a guy called Rishi Gupta who started a business called Zero Waste Club. We've got two really young founders of a consulting business called Impactful, where they're really passionate about helping big organizations actually build value into what they do. And it's just, we see this, it's rife across, as I say, kind of young people, is they see things and think that's not right. And then they feel, well, how can I correct that? And they feel that maybe working in a big corporate is not the solution. And therefore they say, in which case I'm going to go out and do something on my own. And of course, what they're hugely enabled by is technology. They turn to TikTok, they go on Instagram, they build a presence on Facebook. They feel incredibly adept at doing that. Yeah. And it just means they can get their message out there and hopefully make some profit along the way.
That's really interesting. I think actually some of our listeners will resonate with that within the accounting vertical as well. A number of accountants who have spun out of larger firms to create their own practices, which are more aligned with the things they want to offer to business owners, but maybe some of the more social or giving led kind of motivations too. So I think we're seeing that in the accounting industry for sure. So that's really exciting. So that's my nice segue into accountants. There we go, done. In terms of advisors then, so we've got these small business needs that have always been there and maybe are evolving and naturally based on technology, based on other factors. Why does a small business need an advisor? What's the purpose of one?
Well, I guess first of all, I'm very biased on this because I'm building a business based on connecting small business to advice. So a tiny bit of history actually is the Enterprise Nation platform was built on a government advice programme called Growth Vouchers back in 2014. But one thing which hopefully will be of interest and relief to your audience is actually, as small businesses accessing advice and support has been on the wane for the past decade, but that, of course, was reversed 12 months ago. So we have seen a huge appetite since March of 2020, where businesses, of course, have been terrified about their finances, their HR, their livelihoods, and therefore they've looked up and said, I need an advisor to help me. So the first thing is we are definitely seeing an uptake in small businesses saying, I need advice. And just if it's useful, Andrew, to give a bit of context to what we see as the barriers as to why small businesses don't take advice. We've done years and years of research on this. And the three main reasons that businesses tell us as to why they don't take advice is, first of all, they don't know the bit of the business that needs advice. So it's, first of all, well, how do I get advice if I don't know what I need? The next is then who they trust, because small businesses definitely kind of look for trusted advisors. And the third is how much they're expected to pay. So these are kind of the things that are going on in the mind of a business owner when looking for advice. They definitely do know that they need it. It's just how they get access to it. So, you know, and as I say, we're very biased on this point. We categorically know that small businesses who take advice grow better and faster than businesses that don't. So we are huge champions for, hey, small businesses, let's help you figure out the bit of business that needs help. Let's connect you with a trusted advisor, and let's work with the advisor community to show transparency in pricing so you feel comfortable that you know what to budget for. But yes, I definitely think all small businesses should reach out and get advisors as early as possible.
That's interesting. I've been in kind of thought groups before in the accounting vertical where we've discussed themes such as where do small businesses look for that advice? You know, previously, even within the accounting industry, where do they look for advice? So it used to be professional bodies is the point I'm trying to make, and it still is to an extent. I'm not criticizing them, but you know, more and more there's the dynamics are changing where actually there wants to be a human touch, and actually there's a lot of software companies now. For Xero, many of our listeners will use Xero software or potentially Sage or QuickBooks. A lot of content coming from software companies now. There's this kind of mishmash of who is informed with advice now, whether it's so I'm confused that a little bit, but whether it's advice for accountants on how to serve small businesses or whether it's advice for small businesses on how to run them, it's all a mishmash. So, you know, how do we make sense of this landscape of kind of competing people who can give insight, if that's come across right?
No, absolutely. And it's one thing that we say actually in terms of what Enterprise Nation, the problem that we're trying to solve is business support is a very fragmented market. Yeah. And if you're a small business, you just want to know what's right for you. So you need cut through to find out what's right. And just what we are seeing from small businesses is they take their support pretty much in kind of one of three ways. First is from their peer group. So definitely friends and family, other founders that look like you, they take advice. Mentors play an incredibly kind of important role, so kind of like a more coach type advisor. And then, of course, professional and trusted advisors that we're talking about today. I mean, the one thing that I do say about this, though, is, as you say, Xero, Sage, Intuit are very big in the market. They offer lots of content to accountants, but also to the small business. Government offers support. Big tech companies have started to offer lots of free training. To be honest, the only person that benefits from this is the small business owner, because it may be a fragmented market, but what it means is there's huge amounts of variety in the market. And of course, what competition does is it increases, the quality of hopefully what's served to the small business. So these policy sessions that I mentioned, as I say, we've kind of been running them since 2012. And it used to make me really mad when a business owner would come and they'd say to the advisor, policy advisor, I'm looking for support, but I just can't find any. And I'd be like, what? There's legions of it. And I've not heard anyone say that in a long time. So there are lots of layers of support in the UK, both public and private sector funded. This is good news for the small business owner, but what they've now got to be helped with, and again, this is the thing that we're trying to perfect on the Enterprise Nation user journey, is how they navigate to get exactly the right support for them. Because despite the fact there's a lot of it, business owners are more likely to activate support if it comes at a time when it's relevant and timely. And I know that you and I have spoken about this, Andrew, but the potential for open banking to kind of deliver exactly the right support to businesses at exactly the point when they're going through a journey of exporting or hiring someone, or maybe overspending on kind of social ads. If they then at that point get a message saying, hey, we think you need support in this area, here are 3 people who could help you who live within 20 miles of you, or here's an event that is exactly suited to what you're looking for, it's more likely to get activated. So we are at a point of lots in the market. That's good, because it shows we've got a very big and vibrant market of small businesses. What I think we need to do now as a country, as a support landscape, is just really kind of get targeted support to the business at the right time. And rest assured, if you do that, they'll keep coming back for more. So it's not as if you're reducing the size of the market, you're giving a good experience, so a small business will keep going for advice across their life cycle.
Yeah, it's fascinating. No, I think it is very interesting kind of what's going on at that macro level of what you can get from data now. And we're definitely going to see a lot happening with the kind of the general ledgers or the accounting software and the banks, and how they play between each other, and payment providers stuck in between the two. So that's really interesting. But what I'd like to do is kind of go down, as we've been talking quite high level. Can we go like into like micro, right? Anecdotal. What are small businesses asking for? Like, can you give me an example? It doesn't even have to be in the accounting field. What are small business? What sort of things are they asking? It could be an accountant, but it might be a marketeer. What sort of things do they want to know?
Yeah, well, I could go on for hours.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We just changed our homepage this week to literally say, what advice do you want and what type of advice do you want? And so, of course, we measure every single day all the search terms, what a business is looking for. But across the board, there's 3 main things which stay pretty constant, actually, on Enterprise Nation in terms of what businesses are looking for. Number 1 is sales and marketing. So businesses that come to Enterprise Nation, first thing on their mind is, how can I grow my sales? How can I keep my customers coming in? Second is finance, and that's a couple of areas. That's access to finance and then managing their money. So that's the second most popular topic. And then the third most popular topic that people look for on the platform is planning. So just how do I, especially at the moment, how do I plan for Brexit? How do I plan to reopen my physical premises? But it literally, that is quite a constant, that they are the top 3 items that businesses come and say that they're looking for. But of course, they're quite wide topics. And so then, it's, and in fact, I did a tweet on this last Friday, and I thought, I wonder if I should do it every week. But I just kind of tweeted, 3 things asked for on the Enterprise Nation platform this week. And you can see from this what I mean in terms of the relevance is, I think one of them was packaging advice for my skincare brand. The second was, I want to export to Italy. And then the third was something like, I want to raise money for a social enterprise business and buying a local community pub or something. Really specific. Yeah. So it's kind of big wise, sales, marketing, finance, planning. But then, as I say, it goes very, very niche very quickly, because, of course, each business has got their own personal needs and requests. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's interesting because I've been tasked in the team at Connect 4 to help with creating templates for specific use cases, and it's just incredible the variety of people when we look what they're using our platform for. Some running team appraisals internally, and then the next person's running VAT specific, and like before you know it, you're like, your mind's boggling when everyone's got very specific needs, and you're trying to in software companies, we often try and put people into categories, and you're like, this is quite niche very quickly. So on that, so those 3 areas, that's really interesting. I think users will find that really interesting. Well, how do you stand out then? Because presumably there's lots of advisors in those 3 categories. I know of hundreds myself, so I know there are. How do you stand out on whether it's on Enterprise Nation or in general in the digital environment? How do you stand out?
Yeah, so this is really straightforward. And again, hours of focus groups, research, platform data it's giving us a really clear message at the moment of the advisors who are winning the most work on Enterprise Nation. And maybe this won't surprise you to know kind of those that are winning most of the work. are those who are proactive. So forgive me, but on Enterprise Nation, advisors can deliver events, they can build groups, they can upload content, they can upload services. Advisors that do that definitely get the highest levels of engagement, connections, service calls, etc. And advisors who have an opinion, so kind of share their expertise. And this is across the board. And one of the things we launched in March of last year was a daily event called Lunch and Learn. And the reason why I just mentioned this is I hosted them for the first kind of 6 weeks, I think it was. I hosted them every day. And when you host a business event every day with loads of different experts talking about lots of different topics, you try and draw some kind of parallels of what are the key things that go through what everyone is saying. And one of the things that just really came across to me is what everyone was saying is, yes, of course, a business wants to sell to customers, but the way in which you do that now is just through engagement. You know, you share something up front, you show that you're the expert in that area, you show that you can be trusted. Trust is a huge thing at the moment for people, particularly at the moment, because so much trust comes from when you physically meet someone. You can read their body language, you get a sense of who they are. We can't do that anymore. So consumers are looking for kind of trust verification factors just in different ways. And if they can see you, they can see you presenting, they can read your content, all builds up trust. So these kind of parallels that we're coming across is engage with your audience first, see that as an investment up front, build trust in kind of what it is that you offer, and that will then convert and, you know, people will become your clients. And honestly, Andrew, I know it kind of sounds maybe a little bit kind of straightforward and maybe almost sounds a bit fluffy to the advisor community, but all the data points we have on Enterprise Nation show exactly that. The advisors who deliver content are those who get the biggest return on investment.
Yeah, we did some similar research ourselves over the last 12 months, and it completely aligns. We put it into the 3 Ps. You know, you've got to look professional when you have that first meeting. You need to be personal, and then you need to be productive. And those 3 Ps will often win you work. And yeah, so that's really kind of aligned with what I was saying. In terms of, I'm intrigued actually on a personal level when someone has a first meeting on with a small business owner on Enterprise Nation. How do you get that to paid work? How do you go from having a nice chat with someone, with be it a lawyer, be it, you know, a specific, because we've just said people want specific advice. How do you turn that into paid work or even recurring work, which is your ideal world, right?
Yeah. So everything that we're building on the platform enables that to happen. So first of all, the business owner will connect with an advisor, and in a way, that's just a way to get to know them. Yeah. And it's kind of, you know, somebody said to me the other day, Enterprise Nation is becoming like the Tinder for small businesses, because you kind of date first. So you just kind of get to know that advisor. Do I like the content? Do I like what they're sharing? Then the next level up is you book a discovery call. And this is where it does start to get more serious. So as a small business, you're booking a discovery call, say with an accountant. Through the platform, you share what the thing is that you want to talk about. So you say, you know, I don't know, I'm looking to find out if I need to be VAT registered and when I need to do that. So you set out what your question is. You have the discovery call, which is a free 30 minutes that all the advisors on the platform agree to give. And essentially the purpose of that call is for the advisor to show they know what they're talking about, and then that leads to a service engagement. And so it's an opportunity for an advisor to get a lead, and then it's kind of up to them to show their expertise. And we're seeing really good conversion rates of discovery call to service engagement. And then just as you say, Andrew, what ideally the advisor wants is recurring income. That happens off Enterprise Nation, because then if the advisor secures that client, maybe for a one-off piece of transactional work, then it kind of almost goes into the CRM system of the advisor themselves. So then it's maturing that client. But our job is, say that person who got the call with the accountant around VAT, say their next question is, how do I hire my first person? What we would then like them to do is come onto Enterprise Nation and find an HR advisor. So we don't take any transaction fee from the transaction that happens between business and advisor. It's purely a listing fee for advisors. So the transaction itself happens off the platform. But we try and do as much as we can, essentially, to build the relationship so it can become a commercial one.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the question I get asked a lot by the advisor community, and it's not a new one. Whether it's being a phone call or first meeting, you kind of get your one-off advice, and then of course you want to overperform and overachieve and then win work, but that's difficult for some people, particularly if they might be brilliant technically as an accountant, but maybe there's a way they don't position themselves in a way. There's just some people who struggle with that conversion piece.
And just actually the one thing that I would say though about accountants, and I feel quite bad because I know this is very much your community, but if it's the one thing that I would love to think would help accountants, and I had years of watching this, that we used to run a physical event called Startup Saturday. So every month I'd have 25 people who would come on a Saturday and they would all be wanting to start a business. And it was my job. We had 5 hours together. I'd give them all they needed to start. But we would always have an ICAW accountant who would come and cover the accounting session. And the accountant would stand up and say, right, you've got to consider what status of company, VAT, telling HMRC that you're a sole trader. So they would go through all the tax items. And I would look, every month this happened, I would look at 25 faces where they were like, wow, this seems really complicated. So all of those 25 minds were thinking, I need to hire this person who's telling me how to do it because they're the expert. I could almost guarantee every month one of the attendees would say to the accountant, I'd love to hire you. How much will it cost for you to deliver my accounting? And I don't know if you're going to know what I'm going to say next, but 99% of the time we would have a different accountant every month. And 99% of the time the accountant would reply, well, the cost depends on what you need. And immediately then I would look back at those 25 faces and they're thinking, this is going to be like 10 grand for an hour's time of that person. Because they're not given any indication, they think it's going to be really high. Yeah. And so this is just one thing that and again, it's why we brought pricing of services onto Enterprise Nation, is the more that you give clarity to a small business owner of how much it's going to cost, the more likely they are to activate it, because they're just going to know, okay, I get it. This is the value you'll deliver. This is the price I'm going to pay. Okay, I'm in. So if more accountants could do that, I think it would increase those conversion rates.
Okay, no, that's a great tip. That's a great tip. Pricing is it's an area I've looked at a lot, and yeah, it's a very there's all sorts of methodologies you can follow, be it value-based, fixed price, but maybe just setting. Because if you don't say any number, they're forming expectations on their own, and they're anchoring possibly higher than you are. So I agree. I think that's a great tip. Just say a number. Great. So in terms then, what parting wisdom would you say to an accountant, so a small accounting firm? They've possibly got an opportunity in this digital space where they can compete for clients. This digital leveling effect. They can compete for clients they used to not be able to. What should they be doing? You've said a few things already, so maybe this is more of a recap. What should they be doing to win work?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say the market is definitely out there because, as I say, small businesses are looking for this advice. Finance has absolutely come much more prominent on the minds of small businesses in the past 12 months. But the other thing is we've still got record startup rates in the UK. So for accountants, it's kind of helped those existing businesses do well, but there's so many new startups coming into the market. So it's a big market, but as you say, that means then there's more people who want to play in it. And I would just say engage with the community. Know these small businesses, which so many accountants do because they are small businesses themselves, but be in the places where they are. Deliver talks, agree to share your expertise. We've got a brilliant, I know I shouldn't name check particular people, but we have this amazing accountant on Enterprise Nation called Paula Tomlinson. And she is incredible. Every time we say to her, would you speak at an event? She's like, yes, I will. Would you write a blog post? Yes, I will. And sure enough, she's had thousands of pounds worth of clients from Enterprise Nation. But it's because she's prepared to say, I will be there, I will speak. And just a final thing on this, we have seen that conversions work really well when advisors do talk at events. Because, for instance, if there's a webinar on how to raise money, you know that the audience who are tuned in are self-selected because they're interested in that topic. You share expertise on that webinar, and we have seen that conversions come straight in because the business owner has listened, they've got some value from you for free if it's a free event, and the next call to action is, right, I'm going to connect, I'm going to engage. But if you're an advisor who's not delivering that advice, you're kind of not in there. So I would just say the market is out there and it's growing. definitely get engaged and maybe show a bit of transparency in pricing, because that will definitely help.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And one thing I'd add on to that is, for accountants who struggle with confidence, remember that small businesses know a lot less about the domain you're in than you do yourself or your colleagues. So that's one thing I've seen a lot of. And actually, in our previous episode with Alexandra, we speak a lot about that. So have a look at that one, about confidence. Great. Well, thanks, Emma. I found that really interesting. I'm sure all our listeners did too. So if people do want to find you, Enterprise Nation, place to head online, I guess.
enterprisenation.com.
Perfect. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hopefully you enjoyed that short interview. My name is Andrew Jordan. I am the CEO at Connect4. Please do book a demo. Click on book a demo and we will love to talk you through our platform and to show it in action. And great to have you with us.